What does a fearful avoidant actually feel when you stop chasing them? The first thing that you typically see is that this abandonment panic starts to kick in for them. The reason why this happens is because this fearful avoidant has a deep fear of being left, even if they're the ones who pulled away, which I know can be so very confusing to you because you've experienced up until this point that whenever you tried to get intimate or try to work on things that actually would allow for you guys to be together, this person would end up pulling away from you. So how could it be that they actually want to be in a relationship with you, yet they're the ones that's pulling away? And when we start to dig a little bit deeper into this type of avoidance, we can see that when you stop chasing them, their core wound is essentially triggered, and they start to wonder things like, did I push too far? Or even deeper, did I finally lose the person who actually cared? And this is something that they really want to answer and understand because they're starting to really see the magnitude of their decisions. They're seeing how you showed up in the relationship and was really just trying to meet them where they were at and go above and beyond to make things work. And up until this point, they're starting to see how this avoidant attachment style has really played a major role as to why things couldn't work out, because they were in fear of addressing those things or feeling that type of emotions that came with that intimacy that you were essentially showing them. And this starts to feed this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where they often expect people to leave, and when you actually do it, it confirms their deepest fear. And on top of this, this will make them miss you even more, which makes it a lot more complicated and complex for them essentially. The second thing that you tend to see happen is that there's this emotional overload and shame. What they start to feel in this moment is guilt for how they essentially pushed you away, shame for not being emotionally available, and grief that they might have sabotaged something that was real. And I know that this is something that's hard for you to kind of fathom right now, but this tends to be what goes on because, again, they're getting this wake-up call to see how their actions has really caused things to not be able to work out. And they're starting to allow themselves to actually feel those emotions that they've been suppressing away. And this tends to be a really critical moment for them where they're starting to, again, see the reality of things rather than this kind of facade that they've created for themselves that made them believe in this distorted reality and how they are essentially interpreting things rather than seeing things for what they are. But instead of reaching out to try to do everything that they can to work on this, they will essentially freeze, and their shame tells them that they don't deserve to fix it. And this is why in this moment you will tend to see that they're not going to reach out to you, even though that they're really starting to realize this. They're still kind of stuck here because they're self-loathing in this moment, realizing the mistakes that they're possibly making and pulling away from you and seeing you potentially move on from them. The third thing is that there's a push and pull urge to reach out. And then once they do, they will disappear again. And how I like to kind of break this down is the 3 R's: rekindle, reconnect, and then reassure themselves that they didn't ruin everything. What they'll try to do with the first R in rekindle is that they'll try to see if there's a way for them to indirectly get your attention and try to move things into the next R, which is reconnecting, where they're getting a little bit more intimate, maybe expressing how they missed you a little bit, which tends to not really be a way that they're outwardly expressing that towards you, but they may just kind of hint towards that to kind of hopefully get you to realize that they actually are missing you. And then once you respond or give them something that they feel that they can kind of grasp to, that you are not just simply moving on, it will essentially reassure themselves that they didn't ruin everything. And the most complicated part of this is that they'll actually start to disappear again because they feel like you are still readily available. And this is typically due to them panicking and kind of pulling away because they haven't essentially done what is necessary to actually heal from that avoidant attachment style. So they are of course going to revert right back to that cycle once things seem to feel good for them and it feels like things are comfortable and that they've kind of ease that anxiety of you moving on entirely, which tends to be the most confusing part of this stage for you, because it just seems like maybe they've actually done what is necessary to start to move on from this fearful avoidant attachment style and actually want to work on things so that you guys can have the relationship that you know that the both of you can have if they just would do what is necessary to kind of start to move away from this avoidant attachment style. But this tends to be a direct mirror of their inner conflict due to this fearful avoidant attachment style. The fourth thing is that they will start to romanticize the connection. Your absence will actually allow them to start to reflect on things because there's not this pressure that they're feeling with you being there trying to actually work on it in real time. And because of this is when they will start to do things like replay old conversations and kind of really start to see what the conversation was rather than what they were distorting it to be because of this fearful avoidant attachment style. They tend to, in that moment, kind of hear the things that they wanted to hear because they are on a lookout for different triggers that would cause them to not want to feel certain emotions or deal with things that they're just essentially trying to avoid, that causes this fearful avoidant to kind of work in overdrive and make them pull away from you. So because of that, they weren't really present in that conversation. And in this moment, because they don't feel that pressure, they start to actually replay them and see things for what they were rather than what they were distorting them to be, which leads them to potentially starting to reread your text and maybe start to again see all the different instances where you were trying to just work with them and trying to just get more intimate and all these different things. They're starting to see in real time the effects of them essentially pulling away and not seeing things for what they were, which was you just trying to do everything in your power to make the relationship work. And with all of this, they start remembering the safety and support that you gave them because they really take it for granted due to this attachment style, and they can't really see how you have been showing up in so many different ways. And even though they keep pushing it away, that's something that they actually long for and want in a relationship. But because they allow this fearful avoidant to kind of run rampant without doing things to try to mitigate it, they are essentially blinded to this. And in this moment, they're seeing it for what it really was. And that is, they realize the connection that the both of you shared was rare, but they still are in fear of repeating that same cycle. So this often tends to be the stage where they will essentially start to try to breadcrumb you to see if there's a way for them to kind of get a feel and pulse as to where you're at, and hopefully in attempts to see that you are essentially not moving on, and you will engage with them in a way that makes them feel that you want to actually have the relationship work, which if you do that, it will calm them down, but it won't lead them to actually making the changes that is necessary to keep this cycle from not happening again. And the fifth and final thing that you see happen is that longing starts to build within them, but action tends to be delayed. Unlike dismissive avoidance, fearful avoidants crave love. They just don't feel worthy of it. So because they're dealing with that internal conflict, they essentially feel like this is what they deserve. So they're not going to do what is necessary to actually move on from it because they typically genuinely believe that they don't deserve love. And what we typically see is that they do miss you deeply, but they often wait way too long to try to reach out to you to see if there's a way to kind of work things out. And by that times, the damage has already been done. And this is something that tends to be a cycle for this fearful avoidant, and is something that can be very complex for you even, because while there is a part of you that does genuinely love this person and wants to try to work things out, you're most likely at your wit's end where you've given everything that you possibly could to try to do this, and yet nothing really happened, and you don't have any more energy or effort to try to give into the potential of things working out, because this avoidant could show in the initial stages that things are changed and they've actually done that healing until something comes up that causes them to pull away and reveals that this person still really hasn't done what is necessary to actually heal from this. It's going to have this cycle repeat itself over and over and over again. And that's why it's so imperative for you to genuinely ask yourself, do you want to continue to engage in this? And whatever answer that you give to that question, it's important for you to stick with it and keep pushing forward with that in the back of your mind, because I know it's so hard for you to essentially just pull away because you invested so much into this relationship and there's a part of you that really does love this person. But at the end of the day, it's time to take that same love and effort and commitment and to apply it towards yourself and figuring out and doing what is best for you. I hope you did enjoy today's video. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.